fly, but
Sorry, I recorded this that way. Now you're on
Cool,
the spot.
good.
No, I just want to make sure
better
we
be
got your
careful.
presentation.
I'll cut this.
I'll cut this out. We'll edit it out for you.
Yeah, we can include we don't, I think, have this, it's mentioned in our presentation, but as I learned at Little Rock Town Council, the Maravilla Foundation, they assist with water bills, but their assistance goes beyond that as well. I think they have an appliance program. They also have assistance for propane and other things. I don't know if you're aware of that. That's it's a resource that we've been really thankful for our customers, but I think their reach extends beyond that. Hopefully you're all aware of them.
I am of a few things, but anything that we could do to share beyond our circle.
We'll include it in our presentation, but again, if it's that type of like aid to people that are needing it, it seems like it fit into this part of the presentation. So I'm just add, but I don't want to steal any thunder from Terry because she'll mention that later too.
All right, well, I'm gonna let you guys have the mic and I'll let you introduce yourselves to the crowd and community, and then we're gonna share your presentation in our minutes on our webpage afterwards. So we have a handful of community members that are either working right now and they come back and either read our minutes or watch our videos that we post.
Great.
All right.
Terry, all you.
We ready? All right. So good evening. I'm Terry Alex, and I'm the outreach coordinator for LA County Waterworks. And joining me this evening is Josh Swinson, who is the area engineer and oversees our field operations in the Antelope Valley. We want to thank you for allowing us to join your meeting this evening.
Okay.
Well, that's them. We're like, what did I do? I didn't do it, I swear.
Next slide. Next slide, Josh. So we have several topics that we're going to cover this evening, including an update on the drought, a summary of the district's water usage, and a summary of your infrastructure and our current efforts to ensure that the district's water supply remains safe and reliable. We'll also provide some information about resources. And then finally, we'll take your questions, but we ask that you hold your questions until the end of the presentation. Next. So first, let's start with some really good news that recent storms have helped California's reservoirs recover. But as you know, California had historic dry conditions from 2020 to 2022. Additionally, the Southwest US is still in a multi-decade drought, which means that Southern California water challenges are far from over. Next. As you can see from this map, all of California is now out of extreme and exceptional drought conditions. Next. All right, so as a result of the winter storm, surface water supplies for the state are very healthy. However, one good season of rain does not undo the prolonged and extreme drought. So statewide, groundwater supplies are still low, and it'll take several years of rain to replenish. Just as quickly as the drought flipped this year, it can flip back just as quickly. So the region must work to ensure that we keep our water conservation efforts going. Next. All right, so now let's talk about the district's water use. The chart shows monthly total use from 2019 through 2023. So as you can see from the green and blue bars that the customers in the district have done very well in the reducing the water use in 2022, and the trends continue through 2023. As the weather warms up, we've seen a significant uptick a little bit in the past few weeks. Between 40 and 70% of water usage is for outdoor irrigation, as I'm sure you know. So let's just we want to take this chance and thank you for your conservation efforts and to encourage you to keep up the good work. Next. All right. So where does that leave us for this year? As you know, Governor Newsom rescinded the emergency executive order requiring water suppliers to activate level 2 water shortage contingency plan. So this means that we have removed our 2-day per week watering restrictions, And the updated outdoor water use restrictions will be included on our website soon. I'm thinking if not tomorrow, probably Friday or Monday, okay? But even though the governor order has rescinded, we're still encouraging conservation as a way of life, which helps ensure our water supplies are safe, resilient, and sustainable. Because even though it's been a really wet year, our weather conditions can quickly turn from wet to dry. So we must be prepared for dry conditions if they return. So we want to remind you to visit our website for information regarding the low-income household water assistance program that Josh just spoke about to help with water, past due water bills and other utility bills. And sign up for text alerts and so that you can be kept in the loop of when things are happening. We're having breaks or water main breaks or leakage, and you'll be kept in the loop about that. And also to report water waste or just to obtain information about conservation and tips. Next. All right, so now let's talk a little bit about the District 40 and the infrastructure. The assets that make up the infrastructure in the district includes over 3,000 service connections, which include commercial and residential customers, 117 miles of water main, which move the water from its source to your home, 623 fire hydrants, which are essential for fire protection, and over 1,600 valves. These are needed to isolate a section of the pipe when work is being done. 5 active groundwater wells, 8 pumps which move water to higher elevation neighborhoods, and 6 reservoirs or tanks which provide storage of water to meet peak demand. Next. All right, so capital improvement projects. These projects for your community include the Rock Creek Water Line Improvement Project, which will improve regional water reliability through replacement of aging water lines on Avenue W11, Avenue W14, and the Rock Creek Tank Line. Also, the Antelope Valley Regional Water Supply Resilient Project. So this project will enhance local water supplies to mitigate shortages during periods of drought through strategic construction of new wells, water mains, and interconnection with water suppliers. The planning studies for this project is expected to begin this summer. All right, next. All right, so we're always working to make our operation as efficient as possible. We're actively pursuing grant funding, loans, and other means to supplement the budget and support critical projects. Next. All right, so waterworks staff work 24/7 to ensure uninterrupted, safe, clean water. This includes routine maintenance, customer service, water quality, mechanical operations, inspections, and repairing leaks. We strive to maintain waterworks assets to industry standards to ensure they provide the expected cost-effective service life. Next. All right, so we've made substantial investments in modernizing our system, which has resulted in more efficient operations and increased our uptime. For example, we've improved resiliency by installing solar panels and battery backup or monitoring and communication equipment to ensure uninterrupted operations during power failures. We've implemented a comprehensive asset management program to evaluate risks and prioritize investments. And we're also reevaluating and optimizing maintenance procedures. Next. So before I close, I'd like to remind you again to visit our website for information regarding the low-income household water assistance that'll assist you with past due water bills, as well as sign up for text alerts and to report water waste or obtain information about conservation and tips. Next. So the drought is a quickly evolving topic. We'll keep you updated as changes occur. Waterworks is working to improve infrastructure resiliency. And thank you for your continued support and involvement. We are your water district and we exist to provide your community with safe, clean water. both today and for the long term. Thanks. So thank you for the opportunity to provide such valuable information regarding the conditions of our infrastructure and what LA County Water Works is doing to sustain the system. Josh and I will now take your questions. If you have more questions after we have concluded, then you can feel free to reach out to me or get the information off the page here. All right. Thank you.
A question for Chris.
Any questions?
Yeah, hold on one second. Let me see if I can get my camera back on.
I'll stop the share for a minute. I could put things back on the screen, but we can see you just fine.
All right, I'm just gonna set it up where I can put my camera and point the camera at Tom. So Tom had a question for you guys.
Okay, so speaking of water issues, I've been following this Big Rock Creek water recharge project where they want to take water from the aqueduct in wet years, put it into Big Rock Creek to soak in as groundwater. I wondered if LA County District 40 is involved in that project at all.
It's a great question. You know, let me, I said I turned off the screen share, it's too late. I'm not, you know, I can't play the new card very much longer. I've been with the district 2 years now, and it's been about a year ago that I joined you guys for the first time. So I'm still learning all the ins and outs, but one of the things that we do actively, the strategy of recharge is really important to us. And that's why I wanted to include this picture. I don't know if you're seeing it now. It's the, well, I think this is called the East Side Infiltration Project or East Side Recharge Project. This is an AVEC project. This is one of 3 projects that AVEC has. And this one is much smaller than the 2 that are up in the north part of the county. But generally speaking, we're very supportive of aquifer recharge. It's a great idea. Right now, the state has excess water. They're basically giving it to customers without taking away from their water allocation. It's called Title 21 water. It's very, again, too much information, but the point is, it's not free. We have to pay for it because the delivery costs, but we're getting as much of it as we can. And when I say we, it's being done by AVEC, our wholesale partner, and they're taking that water and using these facilities. And there's even plans. This is I took this photo a week or so ago out on 106th. So this is in your neighborhood. The Rock Creek one, I need to look into that. I have heard of that. I'm not as familiar whose project that is, and I don't believe we're involved, but we may be. But I think it's a great idea, and it's absolutely, I think, the right strategy for long-term, kind of to help even out the whiplash, the climate whiplash.
Sweet. It took me a second to recognize that picture where it was, but I know exactly where that is. Can you guys hear us all right out there?
Yeah, great.
Yes.
All right.
Your camera is just pointing down. We can't see anything right now, but we can hear you fine.
Okay. Sorry. I have a question for you. My question is, obviously, in the summertime, you could tell from all our years of history and the little chart you had there, that our water usage obviously goes up in the summer, and that's probably for 2 reasons. One, we do have agricultural yards here, and a handful of us do grow our own gardens or foods or miniature fruit farms or whatnot. And the other half of us have animals like horses, and they consume a lot of water. I know, does LA County have like a program for, people who do grow their own food or have animals? I guess why I'm asking is I felt like my uncle up the street, who's a single guy, 1 goat, 3 chickens, and 2 cats, barely uses any water a day, and he was allocated the same amount as my family, where there's 6 of us, 5 dogs, a bunch of cats, birds, lizards, and whatnot. And we always went over our water amount. And is there a way for either, like if you have a larger family or larger property, like that or if you grow your own food, is there anything like that exist in LA County?
So yeah, there's kind of two questions in there, but I think the first one, which you didn't exactly ask, there's no distinction from household to household, how much they're charged for water, depending on how much they use. I think the only distinction is how large your water meter is, if I understand correctly. I'm still getting, again, all this stuff I'm learning. So the allocation that you're talking about, it might be some type of recommendation or, for instance, during the drought last summer, or actually until the announcement that Terry just made, the restrictions were requiring people to only irrigate 2 days a year, but exceptions for food and vegetable gardens and for animal care. So those two things we were not asking people to conserve, but more than that, there weren't financial penalties. There's a possibility at some point in the future, we would be going to like a water budget based billing system. That would be a much different, other districts have done that. It's something we're thinking about because it's one of the ways I think that you can address the issues of how do you encourage people to conserve while also maintaining equity as far as like that each household has like an affordable like human right to water. These are complicated questions. We're not, but again, back to your original question, none of that is actually currently a policy. So when I don't know if it's a misunderstanding, but as far as I'm aware, there's no allocation that takes place. It's just more of a recommendation. And that's kind of what that red dashed line is on this graph. We had a target, we were trying to lower the water use and the customers responded really well. If you look at the green bar versus the blue bar, customers did reduce water use 15% or so. And it's especially in the summer months when it really helped. I don't know if that answers your question.
You did. I just wasn't quite sure how the final billing or that final detail was. So I'm right there learning with you, if not a little behind you.
Ask him about our suggestion. He said other districts have gone to.
Hold on 1 second. Robert has a question for you.
Sure.
What
Hey,
you suggested that other districts are using now, would that be a tier system such as what Edison does? The more you use,
again,
the
this is
more per
some,
unit.
I think the idea behind these water budgets are to try to help people have a amount of water that's kind of predictable and affordable. And then if you're using beyond that, it's kind of considered maybe for, a lot of people are willing to pay more for water, but it's for something that's kind of a luxury, like a big green lawn or something like that. And having like, so that's something that would beyond, I think, just a essential water use. But I'm not sure exactly. There's a lot of different approaches for water budgets. So, every utility has this challenge where, especially in our case, water is scarce, but our operating costs are somewhat fixed. And so we're all struggling with how do we balance, because when we ask customers conserve, we have less revenue. It's a tricky situation to be in. And so we're always, but the thing Chris, it's Chris, right? Mr. President, sir.
Yes, that's me.
One of the things you said, I think really resonated with me, which is you say, hey, I'm going to be here in 20 years and I really care about this community. I don't live in Antelope Valley, but it's been part of my life for a long time too. And I really like the Antelope Valley and I care a lot about it. And I think that's the mentality I bring to work every day, is that I want to make sure we're making the decisions and we're taking care of this infrastructure because, I don't know if you saw, it was a really interesting LA Times article a couple of days ago about, was it Yano, the little artist commune? Yeah, it was an interesting article. It was just a couple of days ago, but the whole thing fell apart because water rights, like water is the essential part of keeping a community vibrant and healthy, and maintaining a healthy water supply, which is both supply and the infrastructure. That's my core value every day, is not just making sure that your water stays on today, but that we have a reliable, safe, well-maintained water system for the next 50, 100 years. That's how we're thinking about it. And I think water rates are an important part of that. But at this point, we're not digging into any of this, but these are the conversations we're having. Like, how do we ask customers to conserve and at the same time maintain enough financial resources to properly maintain the system? These are the balancing acts we do every day.
Well, I'm glad I don't have to do that. Well, thank you for explaining that somewhat. And then last question on my end. I know you all been busy and since our last conversation, but I'm still up for touring the Pear Blossom water infrastructure with you guys and on the way in between things, I'll show you whatever local stuff that I can, but,
You
no,
know,
it'd be
that-
neat to see,
yeah, it
our
sounds good to me
system
too.
and how it works. So,
Yeah, I
Um,
would love, that'd be actually pretty fun. Terry needs to do that too. So I'm gonna put that in her court and we'll find a day and the three of us and we can bring people along if you want. And it's really neat because you know, let me find the slide. District 40, covers a lot of the Antelope Valley, but we call your area the cluster because it's these 4 different subregions. And that your little subregion is kind of like its own very interesting microcosm of a water supply because we're pulling water from the aqueduct and we're getting water from the aquifer and there's recharge. There's everything is kind of happening right there and you can kind of see it all happening. So a tour of your region would be kind of complete. It'd be really interesting.
yeah, I would totally dig that. And I think a couple of us here would enjoy a tour. I got a big Ford Excursion. I could put 8 of us in there on a cruise. So we've done it before. We took the county out and some other community members and leadership. So looking forward to that.
Great.
Does anyone else here have any questions?
One more.
I think Robert has a question.
So I've been in this town a long time. When I was a kid growing up here, we drank water right out of the tap. It was delicious back then. Not so much anymore. I can't speak for everybody here, but I drink bottled water now. It's not as good anymore. Are they treating it differently than they did 30 years ago? And where's the water coming from?
Yeah, great question. Let me just write this down so I can remember it.
The water, I don't know if it's the right term, but the water here is very, very hard.
Yeah,
It gets
so
on- you
I'm not
understand.
sure where your water was coming from 30 years ago, but
How about now?
currently our water can come from 2. I don't have the graphic open right now. If you guys want to be, you guys are patient. Let me pull it up. It's interesting. Your water supply can vary quite a bit, depending on the year, because we have the ability to pull water from the state aqueduct and we have water to the ability to get water from the local aquifer. And that's actually a huge asset. It's basically like having a massive reservoir under our feet. Starting about 7 years ago, 7, my math, 2016, the Antelope Valley aqueduct was adjudicated, meaning that the court said, hey, this is the sustainable amount of water we can pull out of this aqueduct aquifer every year. And so since then, all the major producers, and that it's changed some of the quality of life of some of the farmers, because some of the farmers were determined, I think it was mostly the farmers, that were pulling too much water. It's a complicated, it's very controversial. People get very hot. I don't want to push any buttons. But the point is right now, we have like what has been deemed by the court to be a fair plan for sharing the water amongst all those major users. But the main goal of that is that the aquifer will be protected. But the way that we manage it is, again, in dry years, we use less. And in wet years, we use a lot from the state water project. Okay, this is going to take a moment to pull it up, but I'll show you the graph that actually shows that water use varying year by year. So I personally think that the water from the aquifer tastes better, but that would be the harder water. And then the water from the state water project, that's surface water, so it should be softer, but I don't know. They're all, I think the treatment systems are the same. We're treated with, and people say, oh, chlorine and things like that. Actually, we don't have to do that. When we pull water out of the ground, the only thing we have to do is add chlorine gas, basically to make sure that it stays, it says a disinfectant, just a small amount of chlorine needs to be added to the water. The AVEC treatment process sometimes has some other, treatment, no standard surface water treatment, but that's for the surface water. And this is way too detailed to answer. Terry's giving me the look. Sorry. My bad, Terry.
No, you're good.
So
But
there are wells, are there's still wells in the area?
so
Yes,
I think it was
Go ahead.
5 that we have, or 6, I forget the number, how many. So this is the really interesting graph that I like to show off. So in a wet year, like 2019, this blue lines here, that's the amount of water that we were getting from the state water project. These dark green lines are the amount of water we were pulling from our wells. Now, this is for all of District 40, but I think it's similar to what happens in your region. And then this green line here is the amount of water that AVEC is pulling from their banked water from the aquifer. So in a dry year like last year, we only got a very small amount of the surface water, and we were getting a fair amount of water from the groundwater. So year to year, the water sources can change, and so you can notice differences. There are some differences in taste depending on the source of the water. Another thing that I would recommend, since I guess I got my web browser open, if you go to our website, we have a lot of good resources on our website, Waterworks. And one of the things that maybe most people aren't aware of, and I think we're actually planning kind of our next meeting at some point in the future. I don't want to say exactly when. We would love to give you guys a presentation about your water supply and your water quality. That's a question we get a lot. And I know, it's the water you're putting in your body. But the long story short is I drink this water from the aquifer in our office every day, and the water is safe and healthy. And we do constant testing to make sure that it stays that way. But and the other half of that, I'm trying to find it. If you go to resources, your water quality and reports. So it's right there on the website. And then if you go to LA County, so there's this one basically specific to your region. And then you can go to these consumer confidence reports for the past 4 years. So these have all the details, and you're always welcome. Another issue, if you ever have, like, sometimes like we have wells, sometimes the wells put a little bit of air in the water so the water can turn white, and we hear that every now and then. If you ever have concerns, you're always welcome to call our 800 number 24/7, and you can get through to a live representative, and we're happy to send somebody to your house. Usually if it's a water quality issue, we won't do that in the middle of the night, but if there's a water main break or anything like that, we have people on standby 24/7. But yeah, these reports have all the details and information and the lab results. Welcome you guys to check those out and to ask questions about it.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. Does anyone else have any questions in the audience? No, you don't have to have one. Kind of got one? Okay, we kind of got one. So if you can't hear, I'll repeat it for you.
I don't know if this is something you can even answer, but last year in particular, and I understand with COVID, things were changing even with our water. I did a small test, and it's been over a year now since I did it, but the high levels of a chlorine type chemical were in it, and very, very, it smelled, it was very strong. Very strong, yes. So that has decreased somewhat, so I don't know who's putting things in, if they're adjusting properly. I really don't know what's going on, but I have filters. Our hard water is a given. I've had several wells out here, living here for most of my life, 15 years plus. And so the hard water is there. There's very few, anything with soft water, but the chemicals that have been added, I do have a filter now on a drinking fountain that I use. But it's cut it all off, but it's pretty bad. It's better than it was. I'm just wondering.
Were you able to catch that?
Yeah, I did. What was your name, Miss?
Allison.
Great. Yeah. We like I mentioned, the only thing that we do the water, again, the water coming out of the ground is usually perfectly safe to drink. We just add chlorine to it to make sure that it stays disinfected as it's moving through the water system. It's a requirement by the state, but that's the only chemical that we add to the water, which is again standard for most water companies. However, like you said, sometimes the mix can get off. You're always welcome to call us if you feel like it was like the smell is different or anything like that. Chlorine's safe at I think a pretty wide range, but I know it's more pleasant when it's at lower levels. So nobody really wants to have their water smelling like a pool. So I can understand that concern. If it's a persistent issue, call us and we'll come out tomorrow. I mean, you let us know anytime.
I think I might know what she's talking about. Usually in the hottest part of the season here, like the hottest months that we have here, like I'll water my plants in the morning and you can smell like a chlorine-y smell coming off your hose. And that's usually only in the hottest part of the seasons that I noticed that. But that would be my experience. It's probably different for others. Okay.
It's mostly last, it's gotten better, But when you're taking a shower and you smell like chlorine and you drink it, it smells like chlorine.
Yeah, well, I
So-
recommend calling us. We'll send somebody out. We'll check the residual levels to make sure they're not too high. That can be a problem. So we want to make sure we're addressing that.
Cool, man. Thank you. And anybody else?
I remember.
All right, well, I thank you guys for your presentation and answering all of our questions. And taking the time from your evenings and probably your families to come chat with us. So appreciate that very much. And looking forward to that tour of your facilities, and you all kind of let me know when you're ready, and we have a whole summer in front of us, so I'm flexible. If you give us a day or two, I'll put the word out to the team, and then if we can join you,
That'd be
that'd be
cool.
awesome.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll do after hour tours to anyone that can't make it.
Thank you so much.